Hey, it's Coach Hampson here again from Mississippi Public Broadcasting Online, U.S. History from 1877 to present. Today, again, we'll pick up with the Roaring Twenties, Unit 7, and today we'll look at Lesson 4, the culture shift of the 1920s. Now, we did already talk a little bit about the culture shift in terms of modernism versus fundamentalism, but what we're going to do, of course, is go a little delve into it just a little bit deeper. Today, once again, we have the unit focus question that we always have, and once again, we won't answer that question right now, but we will answer it, of course, at the end of this particular unit. This is what characteristics of the 20s made it distinctly different from the previous decades in the United States. So when we look at vocabulary, once again, as we see the vocabulary as it comes up, what we'll try to do, of course, is to give you an explanation of what those terms, of course, mean. But in the event that we miss them, please just go ahead and look them up yourself. We'll start with the lesson focus question, which we will answer at the conclusion of today's lesson. This is what influenced American artists to turn to a more unconventional approach to create art during the 1920s. So we'll start, of course, with the Do Now activity. It says the journal topic, identify your favorite sports hero and state why that figure became your favorite. So when you look at the 1920s, we're going to talk about how that kind of ties in. So we'll take a few moments, think about your favorite sports hero, and state why that particular figure became your favorite.
4, 3, 2.
You should have had enough time that you were able to go through, of course, and identify your own, favorite sports hero, and maybe even come up with an idea of why he is the most, he is your favorite or she is your favorite. Well, my most favorite sports athlete was Magic Johnson, because I grew up to be a huge Lakers fan during the 1980s. That's one of the things that my dad and I both had in common, is the fact that we loved the Lakers. We loved the Lakers. I liked the Knicks. So in looking at it, that's one of the things, of course, that made him a hero of mine. I'm an old basketball player myself, and when you look at a 6'9" point guard, Magic, of course, was the prototype of what I thought a basketball player should be. What we'll do, of course, is look at the different things in a few minutes in terms of why it is that the 1920s, of course, kind of changed. But what we'll also do, of course, is give you some ideas about who are some of the sports heroes, of course, that emerged during the 1920s. We'll start with this particular topic, the influence of Bohemian expression on culture. Bohemian, in the minds of many, is a word that means unconventional. And it says the 1920s art and culture was influenced by Bohemian or unconventional styles. The writers and artists of the period expressed disillusionment because of World War I. American growth of consumerism, realism, expressionism, it affected the way, of course, people write and think during this particular period. The writers of the period were given the name The Lost Generation by Gertrude Stein. She was a muse, I guess you could say. A lot of people, of course, would visit her in Paris. People like Ernest Hemingway, F. Scott Fitzgerald, they would go there, of course, to create and have conversations with other like-minded artists. In the 1920s, these are some of the poets and writers, of course, that are very big during the period and have some very significant works of literature, of course, that are created. You have Willa Cather, T.S. Eliot. You have Edna St. Vincent Millay, Sinclair Lewis. And then here you have Gertrude Stein. She wasn't a writer per se. What she did, of course, is she provided an opportunity for writers to come, of course, stay at her place in Paris and create with, once again, like-minded people. Here are some of the Lost Generation writers that are the most noteworthy in the minds of many. F. Scott Fitzgerald, who's one of his greatest works was probably The Great Gatsby, of course, and then you have Ernest Hemingway, For Whom the Bell Tolls. Some of the writers, of course, of the Lost Generation. The evolution of mass media. Once again, before the 1920s, there wasn't what we would call a mass media of sort. Mass media, in the minds of many, is the ability to take thoughts or take communications and spread them amongst a society. And what mass media does in some cases, it informs, but it also helps create, like creating culture. In the United States of America, one of the things that the radio, of course, movies and journalists do in their writing, of course, is it helps create an American culture of the 1920s. Professional sports like baseball, football emerged in the 1920s as baseball became America's national pastime. In other words, it was the thing that we enjoyed watching or doing the most. Babe Ruth and Lou Gehrig, of course, were two heroes in baseball, both that played for the Yankees. And then you had Jack Dempsey in boxing, you had Red Grange, the galloping ghost in football, and you had Gertrude Erdely in swimming and her swimming feats. Here you have some pictures of the 1920s heroes. You have, Babe Ruth on the left side, and then you have Lou Gehrig. And then looking at Babe Ruth, of course, he becomes the home run king. And then you have Lou Gehrig, the same Lou Gehrig, of course, that is an Iron Man of sorts when he plays, of course, for the Yankees. And it's kind of tragic, of course, that he dies with a relatively unknown disease at that time, amyotrophic sclerosis, that we commonly call Lou Gehrig's disease. Here's some more 1920 sports heroes. Jack Dempsey on the left, the heavyweight champ. On the right, the galloping ghost, Red Grange. Lesson focused question: what influenced American artists to turn to a more unconventional approach to create art during the 1920s? The search for deeper meaning. They were disillusioned once again because of World War I and why we were fighting in particular war that saw the deaths of so many different people. And because of that, it gave people, they wanted to turn away from more traditional ways of thinking and take more of a modern approach. And so they look for more diverse styles to express themselves. So when you look at the 1920s, the one thing that we can tell you is that it not only shifts in terms of a cultural, societal shift, but we also undergo a cultural shift. And that cultural shift is going to be influenced by the mass media, specifically the advent of the radio and then the movie theater. So once again, that takes us to the conclusion of another lesson in U.S. history from 1877 to present. This is Coach Anderson here again, reminding you, once again, it is America's history, which means it's your history. Don't take my word for it. Do your own research and reach your own conclusion. And we'll see you next time at Mississippi Public Broadcasting.